Hi, this is Ed again, and this is in our channel called Atheist the Bird with No Cage, and I'm working again with Jose Luis, and I'm going to continue talking about, or trying to talk about, an idea that I brought up in the last video, trying to get a feeling for whether people would argue whether it's better to live your life as a believer. We never defined exactly what believer meant, but I mean a religious person as opposed to being a non-religious person like myself. Some non-religious persons just say, they use different terms. They say, I'm non-religious, I'm a non-believer, I'm a skeptic, I'm a humanist. But I like to use the word atheist partly because that word carries some baggage with it. As soon as you say atheist, some religious people go, well, it's one thing to not believe, but it's another thing to be an atheist. And you know, they think of us as atheists as meaning something weird. We're evil automatically, or we believe in the devil or something like that. None of that's true. But anyway, this is not about what one doesn't believe or does believe, but the idea of living as I live as an atheist, or living as a religious person. Practically, between the two ideas, between living as a religious person and living as an atheist, there may be no difference. There may be nothing we do different in life. Now, if people are really religious, you know, fanatical religious, or fundamentalists, if you want to call it, there's the difference that they go to church, at least on Sundays, depending on the religion. Like the Jehovah's, they go to church a couple of times a week, 2 or 3 times a week. But besides that, living one's life as a non-believer or as a believer has no differences. I guess some thought processes. Maybe if a religious person is at a level where they might believe in prayer, for example, so they might actually do that thing that, you know, from my perspective could be called talking to the God that they believe in, asking for help, or those kinds of things. And obviously, an atheist doesn't do any of those things, because being an atheist doesn't believe that there's anything there to talk to, so to speak. But anyway, I guess a big positive thing I see about living your life as a religious person, I mean a person that is involved in a religion, do some rituals like going to church, especially going to church, and maybe other meetings with other religious people for whatever reason. The big difference that I see is that religious people have a built-in community, a group of friends, their family and other people that believe the same thing, and they do these rituals together, like go to church and maybe they sing God, songs to God, and maybe pray together, do that kind of thing. And the sheer idea of being an atheist has none of that. As an atheist, there's not one ritual that I can think of. There's never a time when I get together with other atheists and we do something like, we don't believe, or I don't know. There just are no things like that. The downside of that is we do not have that automatic group of friends that we go to for company, socializing, and support, and those kinds of things. Is one of the things that atheist communities around the world put a lot of effort into, is trying to develop our community. In other words, reasons to get together to talk about, talk about anything. The fact that they don't believe, or get support, because when you're one of the problems is, as a non-believer, you may be ostracized to some extent, because some religious people, as soon as they hear the word atheist, if you say you're a non-believer or a secular person or other things, you probably don't get much of a reaction. But using the word atheist, and one of the reasons I like to use the word atheist is it seems to somehow carry a lot of baggage with it. That saying I'm an atheist, I don't take on any of that baggage, but it seems to, as soon as the religious world hears that word, they pour on a lot of baggage. The biggest, and I'm sure I said the same thing in the last video talking about this, that the biggest thing about the freedom of being an atheist, which is stated basically in the name of my YouTube channel, Atheist, a Bird with No Cage, is the idea is exactly that. But as an atheist, there's no cage. There's nothing I have to believe or not believe. The fact is, I do not believe in any of the deities, but I don't even have to claim that there are no deities. In fact, I don't claim that pretty much. If the deity that the person is talking about is clearly defined, then I may well say I believe that that does not exist, or I think I can show that that cannot exist. But my simple stance is I'm not convinced that there's any thing that could be called a God. Now, the advantage of that is, once again, I'm going to quote, and I don't think this will cause any problem. Seth Andrews on the internet has a huge podcast, I guess it's called, and his is called the Thinking Atheist. It's huge worldwide, and he's become quite famous with it and everything. And I saw one presentation he did, and he talks about his becoming an atheist, which is a really interesting story. Becoming an atheist, every story I've ever heard, almost every story I've ever heard about becoming an atheist is a process. Most of us were born in a religion and taught this religion from the time we could speak or before we could speak. And so becoming, it seems to me that becoming religious is something, in fact, religious people say it's a choice. I can just choose to believe in whatever religion or whatever God. I can just choose. That's the word they use. And for me, it's not a choice. In fact, I've had religious people say to me, why do you choose to be an atheist? And I say, I don't choose to be an atheist. I just am an atheist. In other words, I have never seen any reason to believe anything about any religion. So anyway, it's really interesting. There's a lot, when you're not religious, they're kind of jokes, but there's some truth in, and there's a whole lot of things that I don't have to do, like go to church, read the Bible, and whatever other rituals. If you're in the Catholic religion, you have to go to confession and take communion and those kinds of things, which I did that as a youngster for about 10 years, really. Maybe the time I was 6 or 7 until I was a teenager. I was driving, because I used to drive my family to church. My father didn't go. So, but as a non-believer, a non-religious person, atheist, whatever you want to call it, I don't have to read the Bible. I don't have to say prayers to God. I don't have to do any religious rituals or that kind of thing, especially going to church. Although, I got a quick comment on that. When I was a kid and a Catholic, going to church was horribly boring. Maybe partly because the whole ceremony was in Latin at that time, and I remember a little bit. Sometimes the sermons were a bit interesting and that, but generally the whole thing was a boring hour and a half or 2 hours or whatever it was, and I'm so glad I don't have to do that anymore. Although I've told the story before, I did attend a Pentecostal church not far from where I live here in Mexico, and I went to that those church services for I don't know how many. I'm always afraid of exaggerating, but 30-some, 35 to 40 times over the period of about a year and a half. Why? Well, undoubtedly I was fascinated by the music. There were great musicians in the group and everything, and there's a phone. Are you getting that? That was a lot of fun. Mind you, I had some incentives, like for example, the sermon was in Spanish, and I'm a dedicated student of learning Spanish and improving my Spanish, so that was part of the thing, understanding the Spanish. But just to put a pin in it, from my atheistic point of view, I can't think of anything that I feel as though I'm missing by, you know, simply not believing, being an atheist, and or being part of a religion. I don't feel as though I'm missing anything. Now at my age, I don't miss the community thing. Although that one tentatively put more or less on it, because there's times when I love talking about religious perspectives and that. So, but the only reason I don't have friends to do that I do that with more, is because of my age and problems of mobility and that kind of thing. So anyway, the whole idea of, you know, and regardless of what's true or not true or anything like that, it just seems that living life as an atheist is much more peaceful. There's less stress. I don't feel conflicts in my head about having to believe things are true that, you know, apparently are impossible, i.e. the guy walking on water. Well, that's just one of thousands of stories. So that's, I think, it's much more relaxing way of life. My name is Ed. I want to point out to you that I'm 81 years old. I'm putting out a call maybe I'm going to put out a bit of a challenge that I'm asking is, maybe I'm the oldest YouTuber on YouTube. I don't know. I'm 81 of last April. If you're a YouTuber, you see this, you know, my phone number is ever there and everything is there. Please call me, because whatever you're doing, doesn't matter if it's about religion or anything. If you're 81 or older, I'd love to talk to you. Or even if you're younger than that, please call me and I'd love to talk. Thanks. That's all for now. This thing is getting long. And thanks, Jose. We'll see it up on YouTube soon. Thank you. Bye.